Okay, we're beginning the new Perik Yud Isa Pasim. It's Yud Zayin on the base. We've seen it in the first Perik. I'll just give you a brief reminder. Again, if you're being oilel regel and you need to go ahead and water your animals, so the problem is the pit that's 10 by 4 is Rishus HaYachid. Outside the pit is Rishus HaRabim. So if you're going to draw water from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim, you'll be over on Haitzah. So the Chachamim came up with a tremendous kula called Pasi Berois, whereupon you go ahead and make the Yumdim. You would go ahead and make the two boards at the end. Two boards at the end. I'm going to try to show it to you now. Okay, you make two boards over here, two boards over here, two boards over here, two boards over here, and that's a total of 8. They're going to be 10 tefachim high. They're going to be 1 amma wide. So even though, as we'll see in a second, that there is more open space than closed space, there's a tremendous kula. Now this whole area now is considered Rishus HaYachid. Therefore, I can take from the water into the pail and draw it, and it's not a problem of going ahead and giving them to drink. Okay, why these 4 other boards? We'll see it's a different shita. There's machlokes. Now this area is a machlokes, but machlokes. How big does it have to be? How big does this area have to be? Is it 13 1/3 or is it 10? Now this is the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. You go ahead, you have 8 oxen. These are 4 cows, 4 in this direction, 4 in this direction. Each cow would be 1 amma and 2/3. So 8 times 1 2/3 give you a distance of 13 1/3. According to Rabbi Meir, it's only 3 and 3. 6 times 1 2/3 gives you 10. It gives you 10. So that seems to be the machlokas. And regarding the different oimdim, the different amis, we're going to get into that. But in truth be told, that today's daf that's just, we say that in the beginning, we just mentioned the Pasi Berois, but it's going to be a Agadata. And not, again, to get into the exact dimensions, we'll just mention in the Mishnah, and as we just saw, and then B'ez Hashem, as we get into the Perik, we'll get more in detail. Says the Mishnah, Oisa Pasan Berois, you can make Pasan Berois, you can make boards Berois for a be'er. A be'er is with water that's live. It's not water that entered there, it's water that flows into there, as opposed to a bar where the water goes ahead and rainwater enters. Arbid the Yumdim, Niru Kishmaina. For the Yumdim, the Lashon the Yumin is 2 amudim, that appears of 8. Again, you have like this perpendicular angle at each end. You have a total of 8. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Omer, Shmaina Nira Kishnei Masa. You'd have 12, because that was the initial picture. You have the 4 at the ends, which are double to 8. Arba the Yumdim, Arba Pshutim, and then you have 4 straight in the middle. Again, we'll get into this later on. Goivim Asar Tfachim, the shear of these the Yumdim have to be 10 Tfachim high like any Machitza. The Reichban and their width, Shisha, they have to be Amma. Shisha is 6 Tfachim, which is 1 Amma, not a lot. The Oivov, the thickness Kolshu can be a Kolshu. Ubenehem, what's the shear between them? So we have a Machloikis between Rabbi and Rabbi Yehuda. Like 2 goads of bakar next to each other, 3 in this direction, 3 in that direction, 6 times 1 2/3, which is exactly 10. Rabbi Yehuda, no, shel arba kshurais, it has to be shel arba. They have to be shel arba. They have to be 4. So 4 and 4 is 8 times 1 2/3 gives you 13 1/3. Shura is tied together, but like Maestro is not loose. The Gemara is going to say, obviously, that's redundant. If they're tied together, they're not loose. Achas nechneses v'achas yotza, and as we saw in the picture, they should be all lined up in the same direction. 4 in one direction according to Rabbi Yehuda, 3 in one direction according to Rabbi Meir, and 3 in the other, and 4 in the other directionally. Mutter lahakav lebe'er, echad noisel be'echad yotzes. Mutter lahakav lebe'er, it's mutter to get closer to the be'er. You don't have to keep it that distance away. You can get closer. You can get closer, and meaning you're making the space smaller, smaller, smaller. You could. As long as the end that the majority of the animal, the head and both of the animal will be inside, so you can drink, then it's mutter. Why? What are we worried about? If it gets too close, you may come to go ahead, pick the water up, and bring it into the Rishus HaRabim. That's going to be outside the perimeter of the boards. The minimal shear is the is the majority of the animal with its head, then we're sure that you can pull the bar, the water out of the bar, you're going to give it to the animal without a concern. Again, you want to go ahead in distance more than the 13 and a third that distance. You go expand out. As long as you keep on going, you can go ahead and be marbe pasim, just to make sure that it's within the dimensions that we're going to learn about. Rabbi Yehuda, the maximum amount is at base of sayim. Again, that's an area that you can plant 2 saw of crops. We saw that in the previous parak when it came to going ahead and making shvachim pizzas of a shayara. We said according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, that for a yachid it was base of sayim. Right? Amuloi. Like Omru basis Saim El Lagina Ul Karfif. Right? We didn't say, they told Rabbi Yehuda, we didn't say the share of basis Saim only for a gina, for a garden, and Karfif, which is a place where they would go ahead and store things. And that was outside the city. And these are places that were not Mukif Ladira. Again, this is another discussion later on about, we'll go Be'iyun into the concept of when something is surrounded, was a surrounded Ladira or not. So if something was not surrounded for people living there, then it's the share is based on Saim. We saw earlier in the Masechta, for example, underneath the tree. The tree was Mesach around 3 tefachim of the ground. So we said that you can live underneath the tree, but we said you can only live up to the area based on Saim. Because really the tree, the dira of the tree was made for the outside. It's made for the avir. You go ahead and you're supposed to be busy with the avir, and you're going to get outside and go get hot, you go back underneath there. So we're going to get into this concept. Again, not the time to spend time with it because this daf does not lend itself to that. Deer, if it was a place to keep cattle, a zevel, or a place where they would go ahead and use to create manure, a sayhar, or behemoths, or muktzah, a place with a back lot that was by the house, a chatzar, then a filu base chamesh kurim. You can even use pasi berois up to 150 sa. There's 30 sa to a cord. 5 times 50. 5 times 3 is 50 times 3. Chamesh kurim. 30 times 5 is 150. I feel a base esra kurim muta. Even if it goes as much as 300, it will be muta. You go ahead and increase it more as imar pasim. So this kula of pasi perois is a tremendous kula because again you can always have more open space than closed space, and l'chayr it's permitted. And the first Taisus in this parak asked the question. We had all this Torah in the previous parak. For something to be mechitza, you need 3 things. You need A, it has to be 10 tefachim. B, it has to be no pirza greater than 10, and C, it has to be that you have more closed space than open space. In this situation, all you have, according to Rabbi Yehuda, which says 13 and a third, you have a pirza that's greater than 10, and you also have more open space than closed space. So l'chayra, it's a tremendous chiddush. Like Rabbi May, at least you check off the 2 boxes. You're going to check off the box of the fact that it's 10 tefachim high, and also the fact that since it's 3 and 3, and it's 10, so at least you don't have a pirza greater than 10. But nonetheless, according to him, you can have more open space than closed space. So this is mechadish that when you have 4 mechitzas, then it's not a problem of having more open space and closed space. That was the problem by a chutzah with 2 mechitzas, where with small mechitzas is not a problem. That's a tremendous chiddush. Says the Gemara, our Mishnah goes ahead and says you can make pasi birois. It says you can make a pot for a bear. Now, let's say it's not like Chananya, the Tanya, oisa pasan lebar. You can make a pas for a bar. The chavolim l'shayara, and you can make ropes for, as we said in the previous parak, for the caravan. Chananya Aimer, chavolim lebar. You can make ropes for a bar, avaloi pasim, but not pasim. So Pashtus, our first Mishnah was discussing a watering hole. We don't know what the distinction now between a bar or a be'er. All we know is that if you can go ahead and water animals in there, you're able to put pasi barois around it. Says Hananya, if it's a bar, right? Chavalum lebar avalei pasim. In other words, the bar, it's not enough the kula of pasi barois. You would need chavalim, you would need ropes, you would need a more shvachach mechitza of orev, of a horizontal rope. Pashta, so he doesn't go according to our Mishnah, which says both bar and be'er. He says no, for a bar, it wouldn't go pasi barois. He says, I feel temechananya. Bar l'chud and be'er l'chud. Okay, it's unbelievable. On Mishnah, we made a mistake. We thought on Mishnah was any watering hole. No, it's not any watering hole. It's only dafka, a certain watering hole. What watering hole is that? That's the wooden hole that has a natural spring in it. That's a be'er. Pasi birois. Birois is the plural of be'er. But a bar, water that goes in, natural rainwater that goes in, that could possibly dry up. We didn't have the heter of pasi birois. Rashi explains beautifully, because you may come to go in there, and you won't have any water. And nimsa that, you're going to go ahead and be samech on this, you won't have any water there, and you'll be samech on these birois, it's not, on this be'er, it's not good. It says Rashi, bar, my mechunasim, the paske, and they usually go ahead and they dry up. Therefore, Chananya said it's asa. Why? The simnin the paskimaya ubali mechitzas. As a result, if there's no water, then mechitzas are nothing. Again, fellas, the mechitzas work only because of the water. Because really, it's meruba pirates al oimid. It's really not a mechitza. It doesn't fit all the three criteria that we learned in the previous Mishnah. So really, it's not. The only way it becomes a mechitza legally is because of the ability to take water. Once you lose the ability to take water, it's no more a mechitza. So therefore, what's going to happen? So therefore, he says, bar not, or you need mamash mechitza, you need the chavalim. But so our Mishnah, so now he could be the Tan of our Mishnah, because our Mishnah is not speaking about a bar. Our Mishnah is speaking about only a be'er. That's one pshat. The other ways to learn the same dialogue. Like Tani Chananya Oimer, Chananya says, Oisa Chavalim lebar upasam lebe'er, Mechal del Chananya leishna bar leishna be'er. Chavalim in pasam light. You can only go ahead and use again a rope, not a pas. So it says, look, Leim Maslisan the like Chananya. I feel them Chananya. The might become a Tanakama. The reason why he didn't dress be'er because the Tanakama only just bar. Kamahadale. The Tanakama only said bar, so he only addressed bar. But in Chinami, who adin be'er would be mutter al yedei pasan. The reason Hananya limited his dialogue to bar because he was speaking to the words of the Tanakama who only mentioned bar. But in Chinami, had him be'er also who adin that pasan would matter. So either way, Hananya could be the Tan of our Mishnah. Leimas listen like Rabbi Akiva. Our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Akiva. Now we're going to meet in the Mishnah of Rabbi Akiva later on. Echad be'er harabim, ubar harabim, be'er hayachid, ois la pasim. Aval bar hayachid, ois la mechitza. Gavay asar tfachim divrei Rabbi Akiva. V'ilu hachi ketani lebe'erois. Lebe'erois in lebe'erois loy. Let's see this again. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Echad be'er harabim, whether it's a be'er for a rabbim, ubar harabim, or it's a bar of the rabbim, ube'er hayachid, oisala pasim. Aval bar hayachid, oisala mechitza. The yachid of a bar, it has two chesronos, guys. A, it doesn't have a natural spring, it's a bar, and B, it's a yachid, it's not mad, it's not a rabbin. Okay, so that's what he said. And here it says you could make for birois. You could go ahead and make for any bear. You could make for any bear, and you could make for the bar of the rabbin. Rabbi Akiva allowed the bar of the rabbin, but our Mishnah said only be'er, not bar. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva can't be the Tan of the Mishnah. When he permitted the bar of a rabbin, and our Mishnah said only be'er, it must be that Rabbi Akiva can't be the Tan of a Mishnah, because according to the Tan of a Mishnah, you can't use any bar. And Rabbi Akiva said the bar of a rabbin, you could use pasim for. Said, and for the Gemara, I feel the tame Rabbi Akiva. Be'er mayim chayim, be'er mayim chayim, the psikole, be'er that across the board, there's no difference. Again, any be'er, whether it's the yachid or a rabbin, you could use, because again, it's a be'er. You learned a carte blanche statement, flat statement. You can go ahead and put pasim around that. Leishna the rabbin, leishna the yachid. Tani. Therefore, that was our Mishnah. Bor mechunasim, bor, which is not be'er mayim chayim. It's not water that's flowing. It is mechunasim. It's gathered in the loy pasikile, that it's not a carte blanche halacha. It's not a flat halacha. Why? Because according to Rabbi Akiva, there's a difference between the yachid and a rabbin. A bar of the rabbin, einachinami, you could. A bar of the yachid, you can't. So therefore, it didn't mention a Mishnah bar. But it could have. It could have mentioned bar of a rabbin, but it didn't, because the same halacha does not apply to bar as be'er. By be'er across the board, it's permitted whether it's a yachid or a rabbin. By is a chilik. So since it's a chilik, we didn't learn in the Mishnah Filuka. We learned a straight across the board did, like a Tani. So therefore, Chananya could be the Tan of a Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva could be the Tan of a Mishnah. Now in another attempt. Let's say a Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. That nan Yehuda ben Bava oimer, ein oisim pasim, el lebe'er harabim bovad. Mashma, even the bear of Yachid not. So therefore he can't be the Tan of a Mishnah. Because our Mishnah said be'eros. Bilu hachak tani lebe'eros. Loishna the Rabbim, loishna the Yachid. So how could Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava be the Tan of a Mishnah if he only permitted the Rabbim? Why our Mishnah permitted both Yachid and Rabbim? After the Gemara filled in Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. My birois, when it says birois, it doesn't mean birois of the Yachid. It means birois to Alma. Birois to Alma means the ones for Rabbim. So it only means Rabbim. Meinachinami, our Mishnah means birois of the Rabbim, not the Yachid, and therefore he could be the Tan of the Mishnah. Okay, it's a very good shmat. So the Mishnah could be Chananya, the Mishnah could be Rabbi Akiva, and the Mishnah could be Yehuda ben Bava. Now it says my diyumdin. When it says diyumdin, where's that lashon come from? It's a very interesting lashon. So it's a nutrican, it's a contraction. I'm going to Yirmiyah ben Elazar, diyu, that's two double oimdim, pillars. Take the word diyu oimdim, put it together, and you get diyumdim. It contracts into the word diyumdim. And now from that word diyu, we go off intensely to discuss some very, very famous agarita, was a good shmaka agarita in Shas. It says the simin diyu the lemunuda shvach nos skalel mida shleisha simin. That's the simin. These are going to be statements from Rabbi. What was the name of the Tana? Okay, we'll meet him in a second. I think it's the Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar. The names of Rabbi Yirmiyah. These are going to be the statements of Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar. It says the Mishnah. Tan Hasam Mishnah in Demai. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Kol Ashisin Peturin. All inferior figs are part from Demai. In other words, you don't have to take Maisa off because since they're so inferior, the Amoritz is going to take off Demai. He's got nothing to gain by keeping it since it's not such quality produce. Chutzman had the Eufrim, but the Eufrim, which is a quality produce, he were chayish that he didn't take off the Mai, that he wanted to keep it for himself, and therefore you'd have to be mafresh Maisa on that. My the Eufrim, Amula, Elon ha'isa the U Paris Bishana. The word the Eufrim comes from the word the U para, two Paris, two sets, twice a year the tree produces Paris. So there's the lashon of the U. We're using the U that we said the Yumdim, we're using it over here in Indian Paris. Okay. Where else do you find the lashon of the U? So we found it once by Paris, and now we find it by Adam Chava. Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah Elazar. We had this exact same Gemara in Brachas. Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah Elazar. The U pirt sufim ponem hayel Adam Rishon. Adam Rishon was created two pirt sufim. Right? He was created back to back, face to face. Nemar achar v'kedem, in front and in back. Saratani, you have formed me. So Adam, the initial Adam, seemed to have a Siamese Chava on his back. And it says, "Vayivin Hashem Elokim Asat Selah." HaKadosh Baruch Hu went ahead and he built it Selah. So something, Selah means side. So meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu built the side of Adam. Rabbi Shmuel Chanam a Pirtzif. One of them says that Adam had a Pirtzif on his back, meaning an image, some type of form on his back. Chanam Azanav. One said he had a tail on his back. Well, not actually on his back, he had a tail on his tail. Mishnah Madhyam Pirtzif, Hainu Dechsiv, Ochav Ekadim Sertani. Makes sense. In front and in back, you formed me. Since it was a Pirtzif means a facial feature. So therefore, something was formed. So the male of the pasuk makes sense. But if it's a zanav, it's a tail. That's not a pierce. So that's not a tziruf. It's not anything. What's this pasuk? And the Gemara Kidor Ami. Ami. He was the last thing created by Sabratius Adam. The Kodam Lepronius, and he was the first thing punished. So we dash in the pasuk Achav v'kedem tzartani. Achar, I was late in coming on the scene. Kedem, but when I came to punishment, I was first. Fred the Gemara. What does that mean? It's only created every Shabbos. What do you mean he was the first one punished? It's not true. First the Nachash was punished, right? Right? And then that's that was second. And the last one, the Skal Adam. So you can't say the punishment was the Klala, because if he was the first one punished, it's not true. Nachash was punished, and then the Chava, and then Adam. El Lamabel. When he came to the Mabel, he was killed first. The Tziv, Vayimachas Kol Yikum, Ashal Pnei Adama, and it was erased from the Yikum, Ashal Pnei Adama, a Adam Ba'ad Behema, from Adam till Behema. The Tzlach, the Noda Yehuda says in Mesech, the Brachas, it doesn't mean Adam died first. Adam died last. Adam had mazel. It's harder to kill an Adam to kill an animal. So the animals died first. Adam has mazel, is a malach over him. However, when it came to being erased, he was the first thing being erased. And that's lashon vayimach es kol hakum ashel pnei adam me odam v'behema. It's meduyak. Not that he died first, fellas, but vayimach. When it came to his being upgemet, when it came to being erased, it was the first thing being erased. It says Vayitzar Treyudin, right? That one for the. There was two Yitziras. There was Adam and there was Chava. There wasn't two Yitziras. There was Adam and there was a tail. It says Rishon ben Pasi. Rishon ben Pasi. Oili mi Yitzri, oili mi Yitzri. Woe for my Yetzer, woe for my Creator. Rashi explains. The Yetzer Hara tries to get you, and then you feel guilty. You worry about Hashem. The Yetzer Tov tries to get you, and you feel guilty about the Yetzer Hara. It's constant conflict that we go through. So the two Vayitzer is referring to the dichotomy of man, that inside man, the constant conflict between Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov. Now, Bishlam, when it appears, so one of them says that there was a face, some kind of image. He created him Zach and a Keva. Man Yom Zanav, Man Yom Zanav, he was what? He was created into a Zanav. He was into a tail. My Zach and Keva Baram. What do you mean they were created Zach and a Keva? So, in other words, Bishlam, they were created back to back. You had Adam and Chava on the back. This creation. It makes sense that he said it was created Zach and a Keva, and then they were separated. But if it was a Zanav, it wasn't in a Keva. It was nothing. So how does he explain that pasuk? Nothing. My answer is Ravo. Ravo Rami. You have a stira. Zach and Keva Baram. Zach and Keva created them. Lashon Mabim. Kibitzelam al Kim Bara Isoy. Lashon Yachid. Says Betchila also Machshav LeBoisay Shnayim. Initially, it entered Hashem's mind to create them as two. Nivra Ella Echad. And in the end, he only created him one. In the end, he only created them one. So we have, I think, I'll spend a little time on this, guys. I think we have a very, very nice, something very, very nice to share with you. I get this up. Again, there's always a challenge. Here we go. Hopefully, this we want to go ahead and share this. It's not paused. Why is it paused? Stop share. Share screen. Okay. So this is a Ramban. This is Ramban. It appears in the Ramban appears in Parshas Perikimel Pasuk Ches. On the pasuk Leitoyte Yesod Milvado, it says Esale Ezer Kinegdai. I don't want Adam to be alone. I will make an Ezer Kineged him. This is the Ramban. The words of Ramban. Einenu Nira. It doesn't appear Nivra Adam Li Yos Yachid Ba'olam, that Adam was created to be alone in this world, Lo Yolid, and not to procreate, not to go ahead and to reproduce himself. Why? Shekola Nivroyim Zachan Akeva Mikol Basar. Anything that was created Zachan Akeva from any living thing, Nivru Lahakum Zara. It was created for the purpose of reproduction, right? Not only the living things, even the Tzameach, the Gamma Eseva Eitz, and even the fruits and foliage, Zaram Behen. I said they have the pistil and the stamen, they have a Zachar part and a Keva part. So it says Ramban, when it says like Levado, it can't possibly mean that the original Adam could reproduce, because everything was capable of reproduction. So don't learn Pshat, like Levado, a man will be alone and he'll always be alone. It's not true. Man could have been reproduced. The question, if he's alone, how could he possibly reproduce? That I give you the words of Rabbi. Eruvin Yivches, do pertzufim nivru. Adam was created two pertzufim. The nasu, and it is made in a way, sheyiyu behem teva, that there will be a nature, maybe a biological ability, maybe beivori hachulda min asachol in the keva koyach moilid. We don't know what that back was like. We don't know what the Adam. We assume Adam was look like Adam, and Adam has an aver for reproduction, and the woman would have an aver for reproduction. Some way, somehow, they were able to reproduce, right? They were able to reproduce. So this is a fascinating idea that Adam was capable of reproduction. That original Adam was capable, totally capable of reproduction. So it's not pshat that he couldn't reproduce. That wasn't. So what was pshat? Guys, listen to pshat. If Adam was created two pertzufim, he was created back to back. I will now make his ezer kenegdo. She'll be separated, and now she'll be kenegdo, opposite him. Because until then, she was not opposite him. Beautiful words, Masu Kedvash of the Ramban. Okay, back in Agamar. Bishlem, first white line. He went ahead and he closed the flesh underneath. In other words, he had a major operation. He had to take off his whole back or whatever it was. He had to go ahead, the pasuk says, and close the basar in place. Like the mandiyam of Zanov, what do you mean that he closed it? So there was a small incision there, he had to close, so therefore that was necessary. Hashem didn't leave it to the attendants to go ahead and finish the stitching. He did it himself. It says the Zanov, it had to be built up. It says Vayivan came as that Selah, he built up the Selah. If it was a Zanov, he had to Vayivan build it up. What was there? There was nothing. He had to build it into a woman. There was a woman, my Vayivan, why do you have to go ahead and build? After the model from Shimon ben Menasya, the Dorish of Shimon ben Menasya, Vayivan Hashem Elokim es at Selah, Malami Shekila Kodesh Baruch Hu Lechava, Evil Adam Arishain. He went ahead, he took Chava's hair and braided it, and he put it in front of Adam Arishain. Shekim Bekrachei Yom, and the boondocks and the islands, Kairin Lekliyasa B'niyasa. They called a kliya B'niyasa. They call it a braid a binyan. We spoke out in Sefta Shabbos that if a woman goes ahead and braids her natural hair, she's over on bona. If she braids her sheitel, she's over on oreg. If she braids her natural hair, she's over on bona. Even Hashem Elokim Amar of Chista, V'milo Mastis Antana, Malami Shebana Kodesh Baruch Hu Chava Kebinyan. Kodesh Baruch Hu made Chava into a binyan, oitzer, like a treasure house, like a silo. Ma oitzer zeh rochav milmata v'kotzim milmayla. Just like this silo is wider below and thinner above. So in other words, it'll be above, it'll be weighing down. There'll be more produce above. So the majority of produce is in the bottom. Kedei l'kabel Paris. Afa isha, a woman, rochba milmata, she's wider at her bottom, the kotzim milmayla, and shorter at her top. Kedei l'kabel vlad, in order to go ahead, receive the vlad and carry the vlad. Beautiful Teres Chaim. When Chava goes ahead and gives Hagar to Avram, her lashon was Ula ibana mimena. Perhaps I'll be built up through her. That's what Sarah tells Avram. Perhaps I'll be built up through her. The Gemara in Yevamah says that Sarah did not have a rechem. She didn't have a womb. So therefore, she wasn't vayivan. She wasn't built like a woman. So therefore, the lashon Ula ibana mimena is very geschmack. Maybe I'd be built up through her, right? As a result of me giving a Hagar to you, maybe I'll be built like a woman and be able to have a child. HaKadosh Baruch Hu came the best man to Adam Rishon, and he took care of his needs. He went ahead, he prepared the Suda, he put the Kala, he even was a hairdresser, he was the makeup man, he took care of Chava totally. So therefore, you see, even the greatest person took care of this, the greatest deity in the world. So certainly we shouldn't be so highfalutin and not take care of a chassan, says the Gemara. So therefore, a greater person should be a shoisvin for even for a smaller cotton, and should not go ahead right beneath him. Well, the Mandiyam appears of Haiminai Sagi, Bereisha, like the Mandiyam was appears of who walked first. You had a man and woman back to back, who's leading who? Okay, this is obviously not for the modern times, right? Bereisha Amar, so Amar of Nachman, by Yitzchak, Mistaber the Zacha Sagi Bereisha. It was the Zacha that worked first. The Tanya, a person should not walk behind his wife on the road. He should walk first. And even if it's his wife, forget about a nation ish. Even his own wife, he should walk ahead of her. If he comes to a gesher, he should go ahead to the side and then go ahead, and not go ahead and walk behind a woman, a nation ish. Anyone walks behind an nation in a river, goes behind the river, she's going to have to lift up her begodim not to get wet. It's not a good thing. Someone's going ahead and giving money to a woman, going ahead and counting from hand to hand, from here to his hand, just to spend more time to look at her. You're looking at a nation ish. Even his greatest Moshe Rabbeinu is similar to Moshe Shekibel Torah Misinai, who was Makabel Torah Misinai. In other words, this person can have all the Torah in the world. It's like Moshe Misinai. In his door, he can be all the Torah in the world. But if he's doing this, you won't be cleansed, you won't be saved from the din of Gehenna. But regarding this person, it says, Yod lo yod lo yinake ra. Hand to hand, you will not be freed from ra. What does that mean? Lo yinake me ra, lo yinake din shel Gehenna, you won't be freed from the din of Gehenna. Amar Rav Nachman, Menoyach am haaretz hayah. Menoyach was not haaretz. There was an incident in Sefer Shoftim where the Pelishtim had been go ahead and they had been Mishabed b'nei Yisrael for many, many years. It really was a punishment for Avram Avinu in end of Parshas Vayera. He's Kairos Abris with Avimelech, Melech Pelishtim, and as a result of being Kairos Abris, with 7 kfasais. That's where he got named Beersheba from. That's the 7 generations the Plishtim would be a pain. And we find the Plishtim around all the time. Because Baruch Hu brought a Mashiach to save us in the Plishtim. His name was Shimshon. Shimshon, the Ramban calls Mashiach Shel Yisrael. His job was to rid us of the Shibud of the Plishtim. He was born in a very unconventional way. A Malach appeared to his mother. The Gemara in Baba Basra tells us her name was Slalopoinus. I think it's Tzadik Aleph. Her name was Slalopoinus. And Menoyach, and she comes and tells that to Menoyach she's going to have this son, but the whole time I'm pregnant, I can't eat drinks, grapes, wine. He's a Nazal Oilam, never such a person in the world. And Menoyach, okay, so here's the dialogue. He wants to go back. Menoyach gets up and he goes after his wife. So he said he went after his wife, then he must have been Amoretz because you're not supposed to walk after your wife. Now this pasuk doesn't exist. The Gemara in Bracha says it doesn't exist. We'll just say it over here because Rashi explains it. It says Elkanah went after his wife. It doesn't exist. But Rashi says over here, but Elkanah was called Ish Elikim. He was a Navi, certainly not an Amritz. He's called Ish Elikim. He wasn't Amoretz. You can tell God he was an Amoretz. Gabi Elisha by the Isha Shinamis where he walked after the Siv. It says you can say that Elisha was an Amoretz. Chas v'shalom. So therefore, what do you mean Menoch was an Amoretz? That it doesn't mean that he literally walked after her, but he went after her words and her advice. In the case of Menoch, to go ahead and listen to what I'm saying, that I should drink wine and grapes and the Tamal Mesim and so on and so forth. According to Rav Nachman, who said literally was an Amoretz, how does he explain this? He doesn't explain it. He just says different shot. He disagrees. He says over here that Menoach did not even know what basic Torah. It says Vataka Mifka v'Naraseha, and Mifka got up and her Nairos and her maidens. But Terkavna ala Gemalim, they wrote on the Gemalim. But Telachna Achrei, underline Achrei Ish, they went after the man. So you see that a woman's supposed to walk after the man. Better go after Ari, not go after a woman. Again, here are beer things. That's worse. In other words, in the progression of beer thoughts, go after a lion rather than be Mahari after the Isha. Be better to be Mahari after the Isha than avoid the Zara. Or worse, to go ahead and walk behind base Knesset, because then you're making at least avoid the Zara, you believe in something. Walking on base Knesset when they're davening, you're showing that you don't care at all, that this is totally kaifer. Now we said this Gemara in Brachas, we said this is only if there's no other base Knesset in town. So people will say this is the last base Knesset in town, we're davening, and he's not davening, it appears as a kaifer. There's manazef, you walk after base Knesset, so echgenis to that shul, it gets some non shul. In every block you have a shul, it's not a big deal. So therefore, walking behind the shul when they're davening is not necessarily a sign of kfira. All the years that Adam Rishon was in Nidoy, that he did have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he was in Nidoy, he begat all kinds of demons and spirits. We had Leland, that Lilith, you sleep in the house alone. We had Gemara in Shabbos, that you sleep in the house alone. It's not a good thing that it can be Lilith. Anyway, Shnema, Adam Shleisho Mashana, Adam lived for 130 years. The Yolid B'Musay Kitsalmai. In other words, only after 130 years did he begin having children that looked like him. Mechlal Dad Ha'idna, before this, he had children from Chava, but Lav Kitsalmai Oilid, but they didn't look like him. So again, the pashtus is that he had relations with his wife during this 130-year period, but he didn't go ahead until 130 years was up to go ahead and have normal children. He had some kind of demons. He was a tremendous chassid. Since he saw as a result of eating Pnei Tzadas, it brought death to the world. Yoshev B'Tainis, he went ahead and sat B'Tainis. 930 years, according to the Ramami Pano, he sat B'Tainis. The gematria of B'Tainis is 930. Meir Shleshim Shana, which is the gematria of Ayin, because since he followed his eyes, so therefore 130 years he was Parish Meisha, or Pierce Meisha. Meir Shleshim Shana, that was 130 years. The Hela Zarzei Teina al Bisra, he wore belts of prickly teina on himself. So he did three things. Meir Shleshim Shana. So he did three things. He he separated from his wife, he fasted, and he wore this te'ina belt, which was very, very uncomfortable. So very good. He fasted because he ate from the Eitz Hadas. This is a Ben Yoyada. He fasted because he ate from the Eitz Hadas. He separated from his wife because he listened to his wife's advice to eat from the Eitz Hadas. And he put prickly te'ina on him because the Eitz Hadas, according to his opinion, was a te'ina. It was a fig. Beautiful shot to explain his actions. Again, Ayin 130 years. He lists the Ayin. Highness, another pshat. He really fasted for 930 years. A different pshat. Bottom line is, you see, he separated from his wife for 130 years. So how is he beginning lilas and shadim and muchais? How is he having these things? If he didn't have relations with anything, how could these things come about? He separated for 130 years. That's Gemara's kasha. And for the Gemara, ki kaminon hahu b'shichva zera dechazal oinsei. 130 years, he was a young, vibrant man. The zera came out of him. From the zera that came out of him, that begot the lilim and the shadim and the ruchas, but not what. It wasn't because it came from Chava. So again, we're going along with all the statements of Shas. When you want to go ahead and praise a person, only say part of a shvach in front of him, and not all of them in front of them. It says when Hashem speaks to Noach, he says, "You I've seen at tzaddik l'fanai." He calls Noach to his face at tzaddik, but not in front of him. Ushaloi b'fanai d'chsiv. Noach is tzaddik. Tamim haya b'dayrosav. Not only was he tzaddik, but tamim haya b'dayrosav. It speaks more explicitly at his tzidkas because of shloi b'fanav. So mitzvah shvacha b'fanav, the kula shloi b'fanav. He said, my Rabbi spoke out to me once a very, very beautiful insight into human nature. Usually when we speak to a person and we're mishabech the person, we're praising him more than we really mean. We're not telling him exactly what we mean. We want to build the guy up. So when a person says mitzvah shvacha b'fanav, is because it's not emes. Mitzvah shvacha b'fanav, why? As a men's shvacha b'fanav, only mitzvah is emes. If a person says shvacha in front of you, only part of it is true, because you're not telling the whole truth. So that's mitzvah shvacha b'fanav. Kula shlei b'fanav, but kula shlei b'fanav not in front of the person. I can tell the whole truth. Very geshmak pshat to human nature. From Rabbi Yomi bar Elazar, my dechsiv v'hinei ola zay ali zayis tav b'fi. It says by the Mabel when they sent out the Yonah came with a branch of an olive back to Noach to make sure that the water was kalu hamayim al pnei adama. Amar Yonah l'fnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu Rebbeinu Shalom. Yim mizaynai merun kizayis. Let my mizaynais be meruyim, bitter, like sayis, like not an olive, but an olive branch, an olive leaf. And I should be in your hands. Rather than be sweet and want be talvim bas v'dam, right? So you see that lashon teref is the lashon of food. Just thought of something very nice. We saw earlier in Masechta Shabbos. We saw that the oifos. I think the oifos they don't have to come into Hakadosh Baruch Hu. The kelev is the kelev needs siyata d'shmaya, but the oifos do not need siyata d'shmaya. People feed the oifos. Right? They don't feel the dog so quickly, they feel the oifis. So you see that the Yoina who said this to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, better I come unto you than Basa B'dam, Hakadosh Baruch Hu took care of him. They don't have to come unto Basa B'dam. But the other that come unto Basa B'dam, we have problems. They don't have problems, the animals, especially the birds. So it's a very geshmak shot we saw earlier in the Masechta. I think it's the Masechta Shabbos. Rabbi Yomi v'Elazar kol bias shenishmoyim by divrei Torah b'layla. Any bias that you hear divrei Torah b'layla at night, you're going to hear the words of divrei Torah at night. You're going to hear the kol Torah coming from a house. Shuvin and nechrav, it won't be destroyed. Shnemar v'yomar ayei elokai oisai nois oisai. Who's the God who made me? Noisin zemiris b'layla. Whose songs of Torah are heard at night. Now, don't go ahead and misconstrue that the word Torah and zemiris are synonymous, because David HaMelech was punished. David said, "Zemiris hayu chukecha mibeis megurai." Your Torah, your statutes, like zemiris to me. Because Baruch says, "My Torah is songs to you," and it wasn't good. And as a result, he forgot halachas. Over here, what it means is that just like a zemer is the coil, the sound is heard when you sing, so too the coil of Torah should be heard. But not that you're comparing the essence of Torah to zemiris. It's not comparable. Just like a coil is heard by Zmiros, so too a coil asserted by Torah. Okay, I just speak out one more thing. I think it's very, very nice. We saw in the Amin Aleph that the idea that Hashem wanted to create Adam two, and he said, no, I can't create him two, I have to create him as one. The animals, they were created as two. In other words, on day number 6, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the animals, he said the earth should give out an elephant. And then it says, and the elephant was nefesh chaya. So the elephant got its likud, it's got its ruach chayim from the ground. On day number 5, when he said there should be fish, there should be birds, and says they were nefesh chaya, the same element that gave him its body gave them what? Its life force. By Adam it says, we were created off from the Adama, but we got nishmas chayim from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, the only thing in the world that's beyond the world is the neshama of a person. It bridges Shemayim v'aretz, because Adam is created off from the ground like the elephant. But the ruach that we have, the neshama that we have, the nefesh that we have, the 3 components, that comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Relationships. The animals were created separately. Animals don't have relationships. They come together to procreate. If you look in the animal kingdom, by and large, the female lives with the kids, and the male lives alone. You go to see a farm upstate, you'll see a cow, and there's a cow alone. The cow that's alone is a bull. They don't come together to procreate. But Teva, they don't have relationships. Adam, on the other hand, has a relationship. Adam, man leaves his mother and his father, and because the relationship between ish and isha is only because Chava came from man. So man, B'teva, is always looking to go ahead and restore himself, to come back together, to be as one. Had Chava been separated from Adam like the elephant, created separately, that special relationship that exists between ish and isha would not have been existed. You would have come together with a female and produced more children, and then gone to live where a single life like most males live in the animal kingdom. But since Adam Shabbat came too, Hashem says, no, it's not going to work. You have to create them one. They were together. Since they were created together, they always want to come back together. They always want to come together. I think I heard a very famous word from a Pam once. In Pasha of Shidduchim, they said, man is looking for his Aveda. Man is always looking for what he lost. The problem is that everybody wants a Mitzvah. Everybody wants a Mitzvah. So we'll see. I thank you all for listening. We'll see you, Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow at 4:30.